This episode of the AI Inside podcast is sponsored by Your360.ai. Get 10% off through January 2026 by using code INSIDE. Hello, everybody. Happy New Year, almost, like in a couple of days. I'm one of your hosts of AI Inside, Jason Howell. This is the show where we take a look at the AI that is layered throughout the world of technology, joined, as always, by Jeff Jarvis. Good to see you, Jeff.
Hello, boss. How are you?
Doing all right. We are squeezing in a quick episode before the end of the year. Tomorrow, at the time of this recording, tomorrow is New Year's Eve. And I was like, do we want to do a podcast on New Year's Eve? Turns out I'm doing another thing on New Year's Eve anyway, so it's not like I get the day off.
Party boy, huh?
No, not even. No, it's not that. But it is, it's sometimes you just got to take the opportunities when they come.
And you think maybe people are going to watch, but last week's episode with Ben Goertzel is steaming on YouTube. So that was the Christmas Eve episode, as it turned out.
Gotta say, doing an awesome amount of traffic, and which I kind of had a feeling was going to be the case. Ben is a pretty in-demand kind of figure when it comes to the world of AI. So if you have not checked last week's episode, we did not have a news episode in the feed, but we did have our interview with Ben Goertzel, and it went really well. Ben's a fascinating character, fascinating individual in the world of technology and in the world of AI. Literally coined the term artificial general intelligence 20 some odd years ago. So he's an important voice, and that is evidenced by the fact that we've had a lot of people tuning into the interview, at least on YouTube. So thanks again to the SingularityNet team for allowing us to chat with Ben Goertzel.
Yep.
Yeah, making it happen. And I'm sure we're going to have lots more wonderful interviews coming up in the new year. So we've got some news today to talk about.
You would have thought we would have had no news, quiet week between nothing happening, but we got some big stories, actually.
Hey, I mean, it just keeps on going. And yes, so we've got a couple of big stories, more in the acquisition, acqui-hire kind of side of things, and a few other things. And then near the end of the episode, instead of doing our normal speed round thing that we've been doing, figured we'd take a little time to just kind of do a little reflection. It's the last episode of the year. Why not look at 2025 in AI? And not at it like a cohesive, like this happened and then this happened.
We're too lazy for that.
Yeah,
it's too much to look back on. Jeez.
It's so much. That's the problem. So I thought, why don't we just kind of pick out a few things that really stood out to us? So that's what we're going to close on. But before we get there, let's talk about some of the news that is right now. And I think this week, even though it has been a holiday week, some big news in the acquisition and the acqui-hire front, consolidation time. Maybe they're trying to get this in before the end of the year. I don't know. But Nvidia has agreed to a non-exclusive deal to license Groq. That's Groq with a Q, by the way. That's important. Groq's AI chip technology. They're also hiring away some of its top leadership, though Groq is going to continue to operate. I've heard of Groq, and again, this is Groq, not X's Grok. So very important to note that. But I'm not intimately familiar with them other than kind of some of the research that I've done. They're known for super fast SRAM based AI inference chips. So this deal is very largely around inference in AI. Their chips and their systems. That means low latency, high predictability for performance, for chatbots and for LLMs, that sort of stuff. And like I said, it's all about inference. So it's targeting this really competitive inference market that's happening right now to kind of bring down cost, increase speed, and take advantage of that. How familiar are you with Groq?
I wasn't at all. And I'm glad I'm a bit of an aficionado of watching Nate B. Jones's videos. Yeah. And I've seen them. He has short versions on YouTube. I subscribed. And so I watched a 36-minute explanation of this deal. But Nate was very good and very clear about it, and emphasizing exactly what you said, Jason. This is about inference. That is to say, the output of AI rather than the training of AI. Nvidia owns the market for training chips, and there's a huge shortage of versus what the industry demands right now. But this is on the other side, and they're betting, Jensen Huang is betting, that the models are trained, the models are commodified, the models are going to change, yes, there'll be more training, yes, but the real action is going to be in hoping that this becomes a major business with major usage by corporations and individuals. That's inference. That's using the model to give you the output that you want. And what Nate explained about this is that the Groq chips have a fairly small amount of memory, but as part of the processor. And so it's extremely fast access, which makes it faster and cheaper to then be able to produce the inference output. And so he was very complimentary of Jensen Huang, saying this was highly strategic, that rather than saying, and I've seen this, others have said this as well, rather than Jensen Huang saying, well, we got to build this ourselves, he said, no, they're good, they're out there. And he went after them. He went after them in an unusual deal. Again, as you said, the first reports were that he bought the company. And you'd think at $20 billion, he would have bought the company. But instead, non-exclusive license, company stays out there. I don't know what its ownership stake will be in Groq. I didn't find that out. But then he got the top 2 executives or thereabouts from Groq over to
Ross and Madra.
Over to Nvidia.
Okay, and that's Jonathan Ross, who's the founder of Groq, and then Sunny Madra, who's the president.
So they move over, and the former.
So that's so interesting to me from a deal-making standpoint. Just this whole point we find ourselves in right now, because we keep hearing about the acqui-hire without the acquisition strategy, and you've got Nvidia doing it. This isn't the first time Nvidia's done it. You've got Microsoft, Meta, Amazon, all of them
doing it,
employing this strategy. What is Groq left with if their top founder, like their founder and their president, the people who arguably led the company to this major point, suddenly they're hollowed out? What is Groq left with?
But again, Nvidia didn't buy it; simply licensed the technology. So it's in Nvidia's interest, right? If Nvidia has a stake, and again, that's the part I don't know. If they have a stake in the equity in Groq, which I assume they do for that amount of money, it's in their interest for Groq to keep succeeding. It's a very different kind of structure. Germany is somewhat like this. This is not the same model, but they have interlocking corporate structures where everybody owns a piece of everybody else. And they all kind of benefit if it happens. This is different from that, but I think it starts to build a new kind of structure here where they can do that. And he gets the technology, he gets the view of it, he expands his business. The other thing I've read about this is that Google with the TPUs is somewhat, I'm going to get this completely wrong, and I apologize to everybody out there because I just don't know enough. Google Cloud and DeepMind models and Gemini were a bit more like what Groq brings, but Google is not selling their chips, at least not at scale, to the world.
Right, yet, yeah.
Right, yet. I think they will, but they're not yet. So NVIDIA is, and it rounds out NVIDIA's offerings in its hosting in a way that becomes competitive with Google and sets them up strategically. It makes them more integrated, and in that sense, kind of covering all of the different aspects, now covering on a deeper level the inference aspect of their business, so that they can compete with, AMD, and I guess Cerebras is another company that, competes heavily in this space. Now NVIDIA, is really moving to kind of control, maybe not own because they didn't buy Groq outright, but control internally within their systems all of those points of the stack. Yeah. Right, and as we've talked about often, everybody thinks of NVIDIA as only a chip-making company, but they're much more than that. CUDA is critical, and to keep people on the CUDA platform for NVIDIA is critical because that also addicts them to NVIDIA chips and NVIDIA hosting, whether that occurs at NVIDIA or whether that occurs at AWS or anywhere else. So Jensen Huang is highly strategic and figures it out here. So I also read Cecile G. Tamura on Facebook, who finds a lot of interesting papers and explains some of these deals as well. And she puts it this way. that in the competitive landscape now, no, I just lost it, didn't I? There it is. Google owns layers, but not the broad industry lock-in. AMD is a hardware challenger, but a weaker ecosystem gravity. OpenAI is a model leader, but a buyer of compute and not an owner of it. Meanwhile, she says, Nvidia plus Groq could unify deterministic real-time inference, flexible training and GPU throughput, DPU offloads, don't ask me to explain it, that keep data flowing, CPU orchestration. And so it's really interesting just to understand the fuller strategic scope of these companies.
Well, and yeah, kind of like what we were saying, dominating the platform as, is it Cecile?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, Cecile. I wanted to say, the first time I saw it, I thought, Cecily? Is that Cecily?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe it is.
Could be either. But that's what Cecile says here. It's not just competitive advantage, it's platform dominance, the whole integrated platform, soup to nuts.
Right.
And yeah, that's interesting. And by the way, you brought him up, Nate Jones. I'm such a fan. It would be cool to have Nate on the
I've tried to get a hold of him, and I haven't got any response.
Yeah,
he's great. I finally, so it's I just subscribed to him, and he goes on these videos at length, but he's very good at explaining. He also loves the tools and uses them in interesting ways.
Yeah, well, he's got a very, I would say, if I had to summarize my perspective on him, he has a very sober perspective on how to use these tools that isn't overblown. He does a great job of identifying and flagging, the downsides of things, but also really smart ways to use these things. I've learned a lot about. Yeah, there was one. This is such a side tangent, but since we're talking about Nate Jones, I can. I'll go ahead and mention it. But I had set aside, he had mentioned at one point, self-correction systems. Did you catch his video on this? No. Of course, I didn't have access to his Substack before then. You gifted me the months, and I really appreciate it because I'm a super fan of his from what I've seen on YouTube. So I'm really going to dig into this. But the whole idea is that usually when you're using these LLMs and you're using these models, as we know, they're going to often, more times than not, give you the thing that they think you want to see versus really questioning and being critical on their own output. And so his whole idea, or that he shared, I don't know if he coined it, but is chain of verification, which is this idea of requiring a verification loop inside of that same conversational turn. So essentially, I want you to do all these things. Now, once you've done all these things, identify 3 different ways that your analysis it might be incomplete. Once you have those 3 ways, cite specific language that confirms or refutes your concern about those things, and then revise your findings based on all this stuff and based on your verification. And I've been using that for the past month, and that feels like a little cheat code because I get such higher quality stuff out of these systems by doing that. So Nate's super smart. He's got great suggestions and ideas on how to use these things, and highly recommend following his work. He's awesome.
Yeah, he's a great explainer, and he's I would say that he's very much an enthusiast. And that comes across, but he's not a fanboy. He's not crazy about this stuff. He's not going off into AGI clouds. He's saying, this is what just happened, and let me tell you what it can do. Let me tell you what I did with it. Let me explain how it works. So I find him useful.
And he always has, fresh perspectives on everything. As you can see on his Substack, there's a post every single day, literally every single day, and they are all accompanied with 20 to 30-minute videos. I don't know how this dude does it.
I don't either.
I look at this and I'm exhausted. I'm like, how do you keep up this?
I don't have time to watch it all. Let alone
cadence. No, but I have a massive amount of respect for the fact that he can do this, because boy, I couldn't do this. That's just insanity. Anyways,
all right. Well, if anybody out there knows Nate, tell him that we are fanboys of his.
Heck yeah. Love to talk with Nate. I would love to pick his brain on this show. Maybe we can make it happen. So there is that, Nvidia and its acquihire position.
And we thought that was enough news for the in-between week.
Yeah, you thought that was it for consolidation time extravaganza. We have also happening this week, Meta buying Manus, which is it Manus? Manus? I've always said Manus.
Everything needs to come with
a pronunciation guide.
Yeah.
Totally. Or the parentheses with the phonetic pronunciation next to it. This is a very buzzy, like it's been catching a lot of buzz this year, AI agent startup. Meta's deal to buy Manus reportedly worth around $2 billion. That's the valuation that Manus was seeking for its next investment round, by the way. So Meta just kind of said, here it is, and boom, we own you. Manus, a little background, Singapore-based startup. Earlier this spring, I think, is when we first started hearing about this company, and they were showing off their agents doing things like screening job candidates, planning vacations, analyzing portfolios, and a lot of people were very impressed by what it was able to do. So now it's a Meta property.
Right. So this company actually started inside China. And when they got the announcement, the last investment from Benchmark, they moved to Singapore. And they're already been controversial because some people in Congress are complaining about Benchmark having invested in a China-based company. But now they've cut their ties to China. I don't know what China thinks about that. And I don't know where the assets are and so on and so forth. But they're bought lock, stock, and barrel by Meta. And the agent thing, there are a couple things here. One is that it brings, agents are the hot thing right now. So it brings agent expertise in. Two, it's I think primarily B2B use. It's primarily corporate customers, which could expand Meta's revenue picture. Three, it's a revenue company now. So it brings in some revenue to Meta's rather struggling AI business strategy.
Yeah, they've got a lot of recurring. What was it? $0 when it launched, obviously, to $100 million. Fastest startup. Oh, that's right. That's what they said. Fastest startup to go from $0 to $100 million in the world, because only 8 months since launch they crossed $100 million in annual recurring revenue. That's pretty significant in a short amount of time.
So it's another case, though, I think, where even though we just praised Nvidia, or I did, for being strategically minded and going outside and acquiring by one means or another what you don't have, I think to be a little unfair to Zuckerberg, it makes me ask whether he still is struggling for a strategy and is trying to acquire a strategy. You could make the same exact argument I did for Nvidia. Oh, he's very smart. He went out and this is hot, and he grabbed it and he used his money because he's got it to do that. And I think that's a perfectly legitimate argument. But I still don't know where Meta's overall strategy is headed these days. With Jan LeCun leaving, with this purchase, with the prior purchase, with evidently some tourists within the ranks. So it's going to be really interesting to watch Meta in the next year. Don't count Zuckerberg out, ever.
Well, he's got enough money in the bankroll to definitely not count him out, because again he can buy his way into things as needed.
Yep, exactly.
It's one of the few companies that probably has, relatively unlimited resources as far as that's concerned.
And he's pulling resources away from the metaverse to AI and believes this is the future. So, we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, Manus will keep running independently. I think maybe you already mentioned that. Meta plans to integrate these agents into Facebook, into Instagram, WhatsApp, on top of course, the Meta AI chatbot. And it's kind of interesting in the year 2025 for all that it is, especially here in the U.S. A company like Meta purchasing, this Chinese technology company. Has its ties to Tencent and Zenfund and all these things, which, like you said, they're shutting down its operations in China after the acquisition. But interesting time for
so Meta stock first took a dive, as acquirers often do, but today it's up 1 1/3%. So it's
never lasts long, does it? Those dips happen.
Yep.
Just seems like that's the way of the world right now. Yeah, interesting. I mean, I have not played around on a deep level with Manus myself. I've thrown a handful of things at it over the last handful of months here and there for whatever reason, but I have heard really good things about it. So, yeah. be curious to see what Meta does with this.
And to grab something away from China, that's okay.
Yeah. Well, I suppose so. So maybe that's why it's okay. For Meta as a company, a U.S. company to buy China, because see, we're taking it from them. In the eyes of the U.S. government, anyways. If that makes any sense. Okay, so first of all, I want to thank our supporters on Patreon. Y'all are awesome. Patreon.com/AI Inside Show. We deeply appreciate your contributions to the show and sticking with us. We're coming up on 2 years here soon on with the podcast, which I kind of can't believe. That's kind of crazy to me. How fast time flies. Big thanks to patrons of the week, Matej Artak, Philip White, Enda McCallig, just a few of our amazing patrons who support us on a monthly basis through patreon.com/AI Inside Show. Thank you so much for doing that. And a few of you have the swag, the Google search swag. I think I announced it on last week's interview episode. Picked a couple of winners. I got to hit the post office today. I've got all the swag all boxed up and ready to go. But you're going to get them. So you're going to get these shirts and this hat, whether you like them or not. We'll see. We'll see how you feel about that. Also want to take a quick break and thank the sponsor of this episode. Oops. It's not Jeff Jarvis, although thank you for being here, Jeff. You're awesome. Thank you to the sponsor of this episode, Your360.ai. Just absolutely love doing this whole process with the folks at Your360. Jared Goralnik, of course, had joined me on the channel to take a look at the product, and now I'm going through the process. I think everyone, including you, Jeff, have given me my review, but I haven't gone through the portion where I check in on the review. That's next in my process. So I'm going to check that out and see what it's all about. I'm excited to see what everybody said about me. But here's what's really interesting here and why this is so applicable. The lack of career development is the number one reason people quit a job. We're at the end of the year, so this is an important time to think about this stuff. Most of us have never gotten feedback that was really just good enough to actually act on and to improve our craft. Definitely true for me. Well, Your360 does something that was, much more challenging even a few months ago because we have the rapid pace of development in AI. This uses voice AI to conduct real conversations with you and your colleagues, 15 to 20 minutes each, drilling in on specifics, the ways that you've done well, your growth areas, everything in between. And then it synthesizes all of that and walks you through the findings step by step in a coaching conversation, which I have as my next part of the process. And if you're a manager, it surfaces patterns across your team that you might never see in a standard survey. Really powerful stuff. A PM at Dropbox called it the most helpful, actionable career advice they've ever gotten. And you can check it out for yourself too. You can start the year with real clarity at Your360.ai. Use code INSIDE through the month of January. You get 10% off. That's Your360.ai, code INSIDE, and you'll get 10% off through the month of January. And I got to check in with you, Jeff, just real quick, because I know you did the process for me. How'd that go?
So, as part of working at, I was giving Jason a 360. I've never been crazy about 360s. So, all right. So I go in, and it's a fascinating process because it's a woman as the agent, a voice, asked me these questions, and they're clear and good questions. But a couple times I decided that I was going to be a jerk, because I am. So I wanted to push the AI and see what it would do. And there was, I forget what the question was, but she asked and I kind of didn't answer it. And she came back, I think, 2 more times to try to get it. And I said, "You've already asked me that question 3 times. And she went, "I'm sorry, you're right," she said. And she moved on. There's something else. There was one other point in it where I pressed. I think she presses for weaknesses, and I always hate that question. If I had any, I'd say it. So I got grumpy again, and she tried again, and it was absolutely fascinating to watch. So then I got an email from Jared saying, your conversation got flagged as one as having complaints, kind of. I was so embarrassed to sponsor and everything. And I said, no. I was just having fun. I just decided to see what it would do and push it. And it did very well. It did superbly. I would say that whether or not there was a sponsor. But the other thing that was fascinating to me about it, and I said this to Jared, is that if I were doing this with a real person, I would be more constrained. This made me feel a little freer. That there wasn't a factor of embarrassment or that kind of stuff with this stuff. You just try to answer the question.
Saying the wrong thing, like having an intention of what you're saying, but it coming out wrong or whatever.
Or getting read wrong, like, oh, I guess he's not that fond of Jason if he didn't say he was the most brilliant man ever. Right. You know, that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And so it was oddly freeing. It also freed me to be a jerk. But I was a little mean to the lady.
I love it.
You've already asked.
Hey, you got a stress test.
Yes, they did. It did. It was she and she needed to do what she did. I say because it tried to get an answer to this question, and I honestly didn't have one, but that's why I played it. And so, hats off to Jared. Hats off to your360.ai. If you do it, I think you're going to find it's more a better experience than ever having done a 360 before, because they can generally be a pain, and this is a way to de-pain it, and that's not the whole pitch, obviously, but also to get to some substance, to make it useful for both the people giving it and the person receiving the feedback. And so I get it now, and I think it's great.
Yeah, cool. Well, I can't wait to see on the other side. I basically have an email this morning that's like, I think most of the people that I sent it out to have completed it. So now I get the analysis part, and then I get to see the hard truths. What am I good at, and what do I need to work on? But I'm prepared for it. I'm all about, self-improvement.
I left out one thing, Jason. I left out one thing.
Oh, yeah?
Using gift as a verb. I'm sorry, man. I can't take that. I don't like gift as a verb. I would have added that in if I'd heard it today. So add that in to your feedback, man.
Okay. All right. All right. Sounds good. Your360.ai code inside 10% off through January. Thank you, Jeff, for that. And thank you to the folks at Your360 for sponsoring this episode of the AI Inside
for
podcast.
Your support. Much appreciated.
All right, we're going to take a super quick break. Then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about anti-AI, or at least a reaction in the opposite direction to AI that we're seeing right now. A few articles, very interesting. That's coming up here in a moment. All right, let's take a look at this anti-AI movement, as the author at the New York Times, anyways, wrote. This is Michelle Goldberg, writing for the New York Times, the article called "An Anti-AI Movement is Coming. Which party will lead it?" And, there's a few articles that we can talk about here, but she argues in this article that there is a widespread public souring on AI that is happening. And I think that, that's certainly
in some
partially
corners,
true.
that's true.
In some corners,
but
absolutely,
not all.
that's true. Right. Yeah, exactly. She says driving this is a sense that it's less a miracle technology and more an erosion to art, to work, education, mental health, privacy, perception of reality, all the things. She points out that many of the people that are creating and promoting the technology have also acknowledged that it has dangers and flaws, but they continue to do it anyway. Something, we've definitely talked about on the show. And I think her broader point is looking at how the AI divide has an interesting impact, on intersecting, at least here in the United States, the U.S. political lines, because you've got President Donald Trump and some Democratic leaders who are really kind of supporting and courting the AI companies, lessening regulation, that sort of stuff. You've got Republican leaders and independents like Bernie Sanders kind of together in some capacity to push for more regulation, moratoriums on the technology, that sort of stuff. And it leaves voters kind of in a strange position, I suppose, where they might support a candidate deeply on a number of things, but then really feel strongly, anti or for their stance on AI and how it's just kind of playing with the political lines in the U.S. to a degree.
Yeah, so Politico had a very similar story. It's as if they'd read each other. Saying
I know, really.
Americans hate AI, which party will benefit, is their take. And as you mentioned, Bernie Sanders.
All Americans.
Yeah, and then Bernie Sanders is now coming out and arguing for a moratorium on development, which I think is ridiculous. And so it's fascinating to watch this, but if we look at it in the context of history, it's real easy to see how we've been here before. You go back in the 90s, Section 230 was a bipartisan piece of legislation from Republican and Democrat that defended the future of the internet and is, to many people, including me, a critical piece of legislation. Then you have others from both parties in recent years who are smashing Section 230, arguing that it should be repealed, God help us if it were, and not really understanding what it is, but it's just an anti-tech view. And then I just finished reading before the show a book by the famous sociologist Raymond Williams in 1975 about television. So about as far away from the moment when television hit the majority of homes in America as we are today from the turn of the century and the web taking over that. So it's really,
Oh, okay. Wow.
it's a 20, 30-year-old technologies. And then television was seen in great measure not as a cultural institution, but as a technology. And then go back another 50 years, and radio was seen not as a cultural institution, but as a technology. And the reaction of many in the public and of the cultural institutions, critics, academics, politicians, and so on, is to a technology rather than, I think, to what inevitably follows once people start using it and making it their own and it becomes demystified as a technology. So we're in, I think, a standard phase where people think that, oh no, it's technology and it's going to eliminate all jobs, it's going to destroy mankind, it's whatever those arguments are. And I think that becomes specious in the long run, but damage can be done in the short run with bad legislation and regulation. So this, I mean, Michelle Goldberg is just assuming that, an anti-A movement is coming. It's going to be there. Politico declares Americans hate AI. That's ludicrous, but that's where we are in the kind of digital puritanism of our media structure.
I mean, I can't remember which of these articles, or maybe it was an entirely different one, but I, saw Gallup polling that shows 80% of U.S. adults think there should be governmental regulation of AI and an actual slowing of its development. There was a Pew study that shows that 17% of U.S. adults see AI having a positive influence on the country over the course of the next 20 years. So then, I suppose the alternative, the outside of that is 100 minus 17 is the not positive, I guess.
Right.
So, I mean, there's probably some truth to the fact that we might be looking, at least to some degree, at the next, election cycle, having AI as a pretty involved kind of element to how some of these decisions are made. Or would you disagree
I wonder where people would really put that on their list of things that matter.
Yeah, that's what I'm curious about too. Totally, I agree.
I mean, I think it's the economy stupid, or it's stupid's economy, as the case may be. I think the immigration stuff is going to matter. Tariffs matter. People's health matters with what's happening with Kennedy. My politics are showing. Sorry about that. And so I think those issues are front of mind. I think I think this is a year-end phenomenon. Oh, I got to write something for the last end of the column.
Yeah,
I have to predict what's going on next year.
These articles were everywhere. Yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely.
And so I'm going to declare this war against AI. And yeah, it could happen. But I don't know that it's going to be a high-level issue for people.
Yeah.
Because the so-called threat is as amorphous as the so-called promise of AGI.
Well, yeah. So, if you'll indulge me, I have a short little kind of related personal journey here that I think ties into this. I
gave mine a minute ago, so it's your turn now.
So, okay. So the last month or so, I've been testing out and kind of strategizing around a part of my business being around podcast consulting, some sort of podcast education, be it consulting with people who want to start a podcast, and hey, I've been doing it for 20 years. Let's talk, and maybe I can help you. So I've been talking with people just for free, just for fun. I kind of put it out there like, hey, if you got a podcast, reach out, whatever. And it's been going really well. It's been a ton of fun. And so as part of this, I've been thinking like, okay, well, going into 2026, what would it be like if part of my work was, that as an arm of my business, a podcast consulting arm. And so I thought, what I need is a landing page that I can point people to like a form that says, okay, what is your idea? What is the challenge that you're facing? Here's a few pieces of information here, like who's your audience, who is definitely not your audience, all this kind of stuff. And the idea with that form, of course, is fill out the form. Then, now I have the information to know that I can help you, and they get an email in their inbox that says, hey, here's what you sent me. Here's what I think about it. Let's fire up a consulting conversation. I'm making this up as I go, by the way. But I thought that sounded like a great idea. So I spent 2 days of the holiday break building this out, working with like a form filling site. I can't remember if it was Typeform or something else, feeding that into Zapier, having Zapier take the form and put it through like a Gemini instance and kind of understand it a little more, and then craft an email and then send that over to Gmail and also put it into spreadsheets. And so I was like, I challenged myself.
We're headed to a happy ending here.
I think it heads to an interesting ending.
Okay.
Nothing dramatic or horrible comes at the end of this. But I finally, after a couple of days, built this tool, and I was proud of it. I was like, hey, I set out to do this. Great. I'm going to send out a link to, a handful of people and just have them stress test it. Like, can you just go to this thing and fill it out? And what I found kind of surprised me, because I'd say the reaction of at least half the people, mind you, these are not all people that are technology, like in our tech circles. Some are, but some are outside of it. And I'd say definitely on the people who are outside of it, largely, I got a very, not angry, but a visceral reaction to the fact that there was AI involved at all.
Wow.
That like, oh yeah, your form was great. But then I got the email. And the email felt very inauthentic. They're like, we know your brand, we follow you, we're fans, and the email doesn't sound like you. The AI made certain assumptions that collided with my personal life in coincidental but alarming ways. And it was just an interesting thing that I bring up only to say that, like, I think there is this kind of reaction in the opposite direction that I'm noticing with people in my life that aren't in technology, that aren't steeped in this stuff.
Right.
Where people do, and it's totally anecdotal, I realize, but people who don't follow this stuff super closely some of them are starting to feel kind of like an immediate negative reaction to AI as a thing. And that could be because of news stories like these, that could be for any number of reasons, but it's there. And I really wonder, with that being there and kind of the reaction that I saw from this thing, what does that mean when we head into, the next couple of years where these tools build out even further, where government makes the decisions that it's going to make for right or for wrong to either bolster it or not? I don't know. I'm very curious about this. I'm very curious to see what kind of impact it has.
Yeah, and I wonder how many of those same people who were suspicious of AI would say the same thing about Google and Meta and Amazon and stuff. Is it an anti-tech company? Is it an anti-big company, anti-capitalism? I'm not trying to read too much into it, but I think there's a lot of that comes in. Or is it specifically AI that has cooties? I'd be very interested. It'd be very interesting to do a poll of them. I mean, I almost go back to them and say, okay, I hear you. I got it. I don't know how you'd arrange that question, but it'd be interesting to interview them to see where their hostility really lies. 'Cause I think it'll say a lot.
Yeah. It's a curiosity that I have, though. And Daniel in chat said, did you feed the AI some examples of your writing so it could possibly write in your own voice? Yeah, I absolutely did. I think though, there are just certain tells. AI has tells. And the more we use these things, no matter how good we get them, they're still there, whether we recognize them or not. They give us a certain feeling, and I don't know. It's just interesting. Now it has me rethinking it. Like, maybe I don't want this thing to be too smart. you know?
Right. It's because it's you they trust. Yeah. So I just got caught by slop I'm affiliated with the Alan Alda Center for Communicating Science at Stony Brook, a really wonderful institution. And through that, I had the honor of meeting Alan Alda and speaking with him a couple of times, and just an amazing, amazing man. And I'm going through my Facebook, and there's a journalism educator I really respect, who put this story up of how Alan Alda helped one of the cast members of MASH in the day. And so I shared it with my boss at Stony Brook, because she's good friends with Alan Alda. And she said, oh, what a wonderful story. And about an hour later, I had to come back and say, I got slopped. Somebody showed how it was slop. And when you think about it in hindsight, it was too perfect. It was too this, it was too that. Yep.
You got slopped.
I got slopped.
I love that term.
I got slopped. But here's a better story. So I'm not going to say what it's about because I want to keep this quiet. And you may laugh at me for this, but I have an idea for a screenplay.
Okay.
And I have no idea how to write a treatment. No idea whatsoever. And it's probably insane, but it was the same thing. Holiday week. Oh, what the hell? I'll spend a day and a half doing this. I started by writing about a 4-page just narrative of it. And then I fed it to Notebook LM, and I said, can you help me write a treatment? And again, it has all this formatting thing. Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, the this, the that.
Yeah.
There's all this way to do it, right? And I tried the same thing with ChatGPT and Gemini and Anthropic, I think. And the formatting was the same in all of them. I think what they did was pretty much crap. It was still my story. I knew what the story was, so I wrote it. But I could have read anywhere online. I'm sure I could find how to write a treatment. Right? But then it's antiseptic and other by using my own material and making me critical of, I could do better than that. Well, then, okay, Jarvis, do better than that. Okay, I will, right? It was more useful as an educational exercise for me. Because it was relevant to me. I understood what was wrong with it. I could go with it, and it was really kind of it was my first best collaborative effort with AI. So in the end, it was me. I threw out everything that it said, but I learned from it nonetheless. It was helpful.
Yeah, and did it lead you to make different choices in what you chose to do from a creative standpoint afterwards? Maybe it, maybe it leads you to I hadn't thought about that particular thing or whatever. So maybe it influences you in ways other than, hey, I wrote your treatment for you. Do you like it?
The problem I have with it. So I wrote to my agent. I sent it to my agent. I haven't heard back from her. The subject line of the email was, "You'll think me insane." ... So I have no idea what she'll say. What bothers me about the AI was the sycophancy. Wow, what a great story, Jeff. This is really filmable.
Yes.
Right? Well, I don't know whether that's true. It's a friggin' machine.
No.
Right?
No.
And I don't want to take any of that in.
Yeah.
But it's fascinating to work with this stuff. And again, I wrote a syllabus for Stony Brook for a course in AI creativity, which I didn't teach. Two great people did teach it this term. And it filled up immediately with 300 students. And next term, another person I really respect there is teaching it is 500 students. And yeah, there may be people out here who hate AI or want to growl about it or want to give it up or all that, but it ain't going away, folks.
Yeah. It's super interesting. Like, gosh, the show could be about these kind of stories, because I think you and I having these experiences is indicative of what a lot of people are experiencing as we work with these things more. I mean, my wife is working more with these. I got her a new laptop for Christmas. I was very proud because anytime I had to use her laptop for her business, I wanted, as I told my daughter, I just want to jump off the roof. It's so miserable and frustrating. Everything takes 1,000,000 hours just to do. So got her a new laptop because I've been kind of showing her what I've been learning about working with these systems for her business and everything. And she told me the other day, she was sitting there, she was like, these tools are fine and good, and like it's interesting and magical to see what they can do sometimes. She's like, but the more I work with them, the more I realize how imperfect they are.
Which is
I was
okay.
like, yeah, spot
That's
on.
okay.
Like, yes, they seem so magical and so, oh my goodness, it can do everything for me now when you first start. the more you get accustomed and work with them, the more you really push up against the obvious limitations, unless you fall down that sycophantic route of,
Yes.
oh, I am really great. This is amazing. This is the perfect way to phrase things or whatever. And then, and I think I kind of faced that a little bit with my tool, and thinking like, oh, I built this great tool, but not thinking about like, what is the message that I'm conveying on the other end when they get that final email? And it's definitely not authenticity, which is a core value of mine. And so, okay, then I have to scale back and I have to think about this differently, because that doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting stuff. I love that tangent. That was fun. Before we get to the archive showdown, just real quick, because everybody was talking about this this story, OpenAI hiring a head of preparedness, a very highly compensated role. If anyone wants to put themselves up to this role,
$555K,
1,000 plus equity. And basically the whole idea here is this unfortunate soul has to monitor and contain risks from the company's models as they increase in capability and everything. They have to address potential harms to mental health, autonomous cyber attacks, misuse in biology, misuse in weaponry, all of these things. And even Altman admits, quote, "This will be a stressful job and you'll jump into the deep end pretty much immediately." So, Jeff, are you up for the challenge?
Because I'd walk in and say, this job is BS. There's no AGI. There's no end in humanity. I'm going to sit back and take my paycheck.
You're going to hang out on the roof all day and
Yep.
Eat your lunch.
Free lunch, probably.
Probably. Oh, yeah. Probably a pretty good free lunch, actually.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah. So anyways, I thought that's interesting. Definitely a lot of people thought that interesting. Do they think it's interesting because it's highly compensated, or because it's OpenAI kind of
I think it's OpenAI trying to argue we're going to kill the world. So you're the
right.
person who's going to save the world from us, which is so weird.
Yeah.
That's their marketing.
Are they going down the Anthropic route with this?
Oh yeah.
This is like
don't forget that Anthropic people came from OpenAI, and so they're of a similar DNA.
That's true. Cut from the same cloth. As they all seem to be. All right. Well, why dance around it any further without some music to dance
Try
to?
to avoid it as you might.
It's time for Jeff's Archive Showdown.
Jeff's Archive Showdown.
Down and out. Okay. What you got, Jeff?
3 quick papers here from my 2 weeks worth of trolling of archive.org, the preprint server. The first one interested me is sell it before you make it, revolutionizing e-commerce with personalized AI-generated items. Importantly, this comes from China. So this is not going to be anything unusual to somebody who knows Kickstarter. But what they're doing is they're using AI to design products without having to prototype them. And then they can put them up and they can see, do people want this? And if they want it, then we'll make an offer for it. And then we'll take the orders and then we'll make it. So it's an extension of the Kickstarter model where you use your customer's capital to build the thing. But in a world of high turnaround fashion, this will be even more high turnaround. And it's not hard to see, I think, this is not really part of the paper, but that I could see in it. But why does the tool need to be in the control of just the company? If I designed a jacket and I convinced enough people to say, do you like my jacket? And what if they could discover that, they'll make it for me and they'll sell it to me and they'll give me a cut of it because I designed it. Can I use AI to do that? Or can I get a single purely personalized item because AI can do it? So it's just AI is now moving into this sequence of product development. And I've long argued, I think
it's interesting,
that you've got to move the customer up much earlier in the design chain. Rather than designing the whole product in secret and saying, here, don't you love it? And we spend a lot of money to prove that you love it. The more that it comes from the need and desire of people themselves, the better. So,
man, you know what that has me thinking is we've talked in the past about I don't know if it's a possible future. I don't know if it's an inevitable future, but the future where maybe things exist, like maybe movies exist, but there's also like a tangent where the systems are good enough to where I have an idea and I say, the movie I want to watch right now is a movie about this guy that blah, blah, blah. I spell out the basic plot line and bloop, it creates the movie for me and it's good enough that it's entertaining and blah, blah, blah. I wonder if that could happen with products too, where it's like, you know what I really want is a sweatshirt that does this. Just make it and produce it and send it. And God, I could see that happening. Like I could absolutely see that happening with systems like this.
So Google announced some things that they changed, and one of them is that they said. Let me see if I can get this to happen. Tell me a story about an entrepreneur who starts a company and becomes rich.
In Seattle, Elias Thorne didn't feel like a future billionaire. He felt like a man who was tired of losing his keys. Elias was a software engineer with a frustrating trait. He was obsessed with micro inefficiencies. He noticed that people spent an average of 6 months.
Okay, that's enough.
Yeah.
But one of the things is Gemini is now saying, we'll tell you a story.
Yeah.
Exactly what you just said. Tell it the story you want to be told.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And I mean, is it a good story? That remains to be seen. Probably not. But I mean, long enough timeline, enough development, enough training around what is good versus not. I guess that's the real challenge. But yeah, I could see that. And right. So, are we looking at a future where it's like that the clothes that you wear potentially are the clothes that you just had an idea you wanted and you didn't have to like spend a million hours trying to find the thing that matches. You just say, I need a black turtleneck that fits a tall size, blah, 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 and has this logo on the back, or I don't know what it looks like. And then the AI just goes, boop, here you go. We'll send it out.
Yeah.
6-hour shipping.
Second paper. yes, probably. Yeah. Instant manufacturing, 2 houses down from you. The factory drives up to your driveway and drops it off. Yep. Second is fascinating, especially with what you talked about with your wife's attitude toward AI. What human-horse interactions may teach us about effective human-AI interactions.
Okay.
This from Mohammed Hussein Johari and Stanley Ahalt at UNC Chapel Hill. And their argument is simple and straightforward, but charming for what it is, saying that the way that a rider, and I'm not a horse rider, are you? Do you ride horses?
No, I don't. No.
But I've got friends who are. I live in horse country, and
I have friends who are, but no.
There's a certain magic that occurs of communication. That the horse is the one doing what you're doing, but they have a shared and harmonious decision making. The horse is deciding, you're deciding. You're coming together to do this stuff. And so it's an argument for a model around what to think of as AI, which I think is good. It's not that it takes over the world. It's that we work in harmony.
In tandem. Yeah, right.
Yes. And then the third paper from folks at Institut Polytechnique in Paris and École Polytechnique in Paris, FakeParts, a new family of AI-generated deepfakes. What's interesting about this is not a full deepfake. This is the discovery of the ability of AI to fake just part of an image or part of a video. So imagine, if you would, you can change the face, right? We know it can do that in photos. So the next phase of deepfakes, it'll be harder to tell because 95% of the photo is real.
Wow, okay.
But just this part is faked.
So, okay, that's interesting. There's probably a term for this that I'm just not aware of. But when I think of like Nano Banana, let's say, and Nano Banana has gotten really good at giving it a source image and saying this, but here,
right,
or whatever, right, and retaining the qualities, or this image, but change the hair to red. My understanding about it is that it's not actually only changing the hair to red. It's doing a whole pass over the thing. It's just getting really good at replicating the original thing. I wonder how that applies to here, because in that case, is it really possible with current systems to only change a portion of the thing and not the entire thing, just make it adhere really closely, if that makes sense?
They list 8 possible, some of which I don't understand. Face swapping, in-painting, which we've seen that, you fill in part of the interpolation, you extend something. Out-painting, you extend the image. A style change. Those are the 6 ways that they define it can be done.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
they're looking at it in a way that I can't fully understand because these papers are highly technical. But
Yeah.
interesting trend a coming.
Yeah, and I guess that's true. That kind of answers my question. I mean, especially when you talk about face swapping. I mean, this is a technology that we've had for a number of years now. AI has inherently it's made it higher quality and more effective. And in that application, we're not seeing the system completely generating the entire image and just swapping the face. So
Right.
that would seem to be the answer. Yeah, is that yes, we do have the ability to do this. So interesting. I mean, that does make detecting a lot more difficult when 95% of the image is fine, and maybe it's that one really important smaller part.
And
that
all you want to
have
change
really
is whether
scrutinize.
it was a $1 tip or a $1,000 bribe.
Yeah,
It's all you're doing is changing one little aspect of the image.
yeah, interesting stuff. All right. Well, the show is fascinating me to no end. Hopefully it is to you too. And if you like it, leave us a review. I'll just say that wherever you could leave a review or comment on the videos or whatever, interact with the AI Inside wherever you happen to be watching or listening. We really appreciate it. Going to take a super quick break. Going to come back with a few minutes to take a look at the year that was 2025 and maybe a look forward to 2026. That's coming up in a moment. All right, 2025 in review, and I think this is inspired. You had put in a link to Andre Karpathy's post 2025
Normally
LLM
is quite
year in
voluble,
review.
and this is for him. This is extremely short. And to the
Extremely
point.
short.
Yes.
Okay. So, okay, I wonder why. Hey, you know what? We all have a lot of things going on right now, so
Yeah,
it's okay.
he's a
You're
little
forgiven.
busy.
He's a little busy. But yeah, so this is interesting. So some of this stuff I had to kind of like noodle on and think about. I don't know how deeply we want to go into this, but reinforcement learning from verifiable rewards. So this is basically like a step of training where models are learning their reasoning in a more enhanced way because they're chasing rewards that can get checked automatically is, I guess, one of his reflections from the year. He's probably, I mean, obviously, clearly he's looking at this stuff on a deeper technical level
Yes.
than probably I do. I'm not going to speak for you.
No, I don't know what the hell.
Jagged intelligence, which at first I was like, well, what the heck is that? But it actually makes a lot of sense. And kind of ties in with what we were talking about a little bit earlier. AI can look really brilliant when you're talking about a few narrow areas, but then it falls apart on the tasks that surround that, tasks that seem like they should be very easy. And this is still a challenge with AI as far as what we're seeing. There's a few others here. Any stand out for you in particular?
I think a cursor is the hot thing that people are going for
Yeah.
this year. I think my son is using it as a developer, and I think it's impressing people. Alongside Claude Code has really been the winner of the year when it comes to coders, alongside vibe coding. So in the coding world, if these early stages of generative AI had stuck to coding, I think it would have absolutely blown the minds of a small but powerful part of the country, but it wouldn't have been the huge phenomenon of business that it has been.
Yeah.
But that's where it's
indeed.
most successful, I think.
Yeah, and then it calls out Nano Banana and LLM's UI, which yes, Nano Banana is really impressive, as we've talked about. Gemini and some of their Google's integrated kind of graphical hooks that are coming into the model is getting really impressive and really good, and kind of making it a more friendly, familiar kind of way to do this sort of work. And so that's going to, I think, over time broaden out and bring more people in. So yeah, kind of a good walkthrough. What are a few things that kind of stood out for you for this year? I mean, obviously there are a bazillion things we talked about, but I'm curious to know.
So each of us has three things that we'll talk about from the year.
Yeah.
My first is the split between LLM believers and world model believers. And I think that we've talked about that a lot on the show. And Google is still going strong in the LLM world, and they believe that it's going to. And when I went to this event with a DeepMind person and Jan LeCun, they ended up in a debate. So interestingly, there's a video of Jan online in which he says there's no such thing as general intelligence. Human intelligence is super specialized for the physical world. This is playing into exactly what he's doing in the future. He's working on world models. Fei Li is working on world models. Jensen Huang has talked about world models. So in comes Demis Hassabis, who then says, Jan is just plain incorrect here. He's confusing general intelligence with universal intelligence. Brains are this exquisite and complex phenomenon that can take on general knowledge. And that's the argument on that side, is that if we've seen the performance so far, if we just scale it, it'll do anything. And then Jan comes back and says, I think there's a disagreement largely one of vocabulary, that he objects to this idea of general intelligence. And he says that we are all specialized in our intelligence. There are certain things we can do really well. We can figure out the physics of a ball coming our way. But as he said in the video, we're crappy generally at chess. The machine can be better at chess. We are specialized in our knowledge. So this is the essence of an argument that's going on in mathematical terms and in scale terms going on. So that's one. Two is the second thing for the year. I think my conclusion is Google's the new Google. And a lot of people
big year for Google. Yeah.
Yes, people were declaring Google dead, OpenAI is taken over, search is dead. No, Google's done a superb job, and I think it's on top. And interestingly, I just threw this in at the last minute. You'll remember that when Google put up the AI as part of the search results, and somebody from Business Insider went in and got it to say, how do you get to keep the cheese on the pizza? And Google said, you mix in glue, which everybody had to make fun of, and indeed, and Katie Natopoulos at Business Insider, in fact, made pizza with glue and wrote it and ate it. Anything for a story, man. Anything for a story. But now, big credit. She came back at the year end and ate crow instead, and said that Google AI overviews had the last laugh this year, that they've really been good. And then
I guess Google has the last laugh now. I love that.
They do indeed. And she ate crow without glue. And my third is U.S. versus China, I think, this year. Because of DeepSeek, I think that's a huge part of the story, and it's going to have policies, political, strategic, business implications going forward. What were your three,
100%.
Jason?
100%. Yeah, and by the way, like, I don't know, there's probably plenty more, but when I was thinking about it, I was like, here's a couple of things that come to mind. And kind of what I was talking about earlier, just a general kind of thing that has me really interested right now is this like confused state that I know people, as more and more people are interacting themselves with AI, that I think a lot of people are feeling right now is, both techies and non-techies seem to, they're using the tools, even though they hate to admit it. There's like a conflicted relationship that I think a lot of people have, a love-hate relationship, kind of confusion around these tools, because and the only reason that this is really top of mind is kind of like the story that I told earlier and some of the conversations I've had with people outside of tech circles. Lots of people are using these tools, and some people are being really I don't know. Some people are using them, but then don't want other people to know that they're using them. It's like they're ashamed to be using them. It's a weird time for this technology, and for people to know, is it okay? Is it okay that I use this technology, even though everybody's using it and everybody's pretending like they aren't? So I don't know. I think that's been kind of an interesting thing to watch. Just the fact that like this was a big year for agents, and yet, man, do they need a lot of work? Like, and I guess agents is a broad term, but when I think of, from a consumer perspective, which is largely my own perspective, any of the times that I've really kind of leaned into agents to test out something or try something, or, oh, wow, that capability is here, we can finally do that. Rarely am I ever presented with, oh, it did it perfectly. Yay, I'm going to do that again next time. Right. It's kind of it's still early days for agents, as much as this seemed like the year of agents. And again, I know that's a loose terminology, and there are a lot of ways in which, people have become really good at programming agents on a deeper level and getting them to do cool things. Yes, that's possible. But I think by and large, they need a lot more work before more people gain their trust and actually decide, like, okay, yeah, I'm going to rely on this for buying or whatever the case may be. And then, did we even talk about the AI for companionship? I think maybe that was a story that was in there earlier that maybe got cut. But just as a general theme, this has been a real interesting year when it comes to the chatbots and their development and how that is working its way into general users from a companionship perspective. Lots of resistance. notable adoption, but plenty of resistance. And I think there's little acknowledgement in that, as we talk about, little acknowledgement around the reasons that are driving people to do that in the first place. And there was an HBR article that you, I can't remember if you put this in. No, actually, I found this on Harvard Business Review that has a little chart here where they looked at the top 10 Gen AI use cases in 2024 compared to 2025. 2024, the top use case was generating ideas. That dropped to number 6 in 2025. The top of what they're saying is therapy and companionship. And I think that's an interesting kind of place that we find ourselves with these chatbots as they continue to proliferate.
Yeah, we had 2 headlines in here. One was from the Wall Street Journal with AI chatbots linked to psychosis, say doctors.
Yeah.
A little much, I think. And basically what the story says is people already had these problems, and then they were using the AI, and the AI validated what they were saying. At the same time, The Guardian, which tends to be, and I love The Guardian, but they tend to be puritanical about technology these days, had a story saying, could AI relationships actually be good for us? So it's like, is red wine going to kill you or save you? Depends on
It's totally
who you
it.
listened to last.
That's totally it. Yes. There's so many more. I'm sure y'all are screaming a million things at us. But what about
So how about
2026
next
real
year?
quick?
How about next year, Jason?
Yeah. Okay. I'm just going to throw these out here real quick because I know we're going a little long at this point. I think this next year there's going to be a little bit of a reckoning because I'm kind of seeing it a little myself as well. Reckoning around how productive we actually are when we use these tools. Like the more our eyes open, as at least I can speak for myself, the more my eyes open to the possibilities, the more I'm like, oh, well, I want to do more using these tools because that's going to enable me to do so much more. But then I realize on the other end that it creates a different type of work that I have to then do to make sure that the time that I saved over here is okay. And I kind of think in some ways it's kind of a net equal to a certain degree. And I wonder how more people are going to come to terms with that. You know, this was magical at first. Now I'm starting to really get a clearer picture. Is it actually making me more productive, or is it just making my work different? And think people might see that a little bit more. AI shopping moving beyond the demo. Again, that has a big trust component, but I think we're early on the AI shopping thing. And if we know anything about the internet and how it all works, that's pretty critical. That moves the industry in a lot of ways when they figure out these new ways to buy things and to sell things. And AI is squarely in the crosshairs there.
I remember when I worked for Condé Nast way back in the day, there was the belief that people were not going to use the very belief was people aren't going to use the internet to buy things. They're not going to trust the internet. Obviously,
I remember that.
Then they weren't going to buy expensive things. And we started a style.com store with Neiman Marcus with very expensive things. And so these things change over time. I think you're right. The shopping stuff will get real. Have you used Rufus at Amazon?
I have. That's where it like suggests certain things.
It comes up to the side, right?
Stuff.
And I've been ignoring it. This is more than you want to know about me.
I've seen it.
It's cold here, so I needed a new robe that was warmer. And I went to the store, and they were like, "Ew, creepy feeling." And I looked at Amazon to look at robes, and so Rufus came up, and I said, "I don't want a robe that feels creepy and too soft and all this. I want something that feels like a towel." I said, "Oh, you don't want this, you want that," and it made recommendations. And I thought, "Oh, okay, I get this now." And I got something in the shopping cart as we speak.
Okay, well, I'll be curious to know if it feels like a towel or something creepy.
Yeah.
Creepy robe. And I think my last one is just I'm curious about this kind of growing, let me see, how do I phrase this? I think we're going to see a lot more AI hardware, AI-driven hardware, right? And a lot of it is going to be built around this idea that as we as users work with AI, we realize the value of context. I know I do. And so I realize the value of having certain conversations and meetings and whatever recorded so that I can then work with that data on a comprehensive way after the fact. But what that opens is this kind of like growing kind of connection into a more openly surveillant world where people want to be recording more things. Their devices enable them to record more things because they're wearing glasses that make it really easy, or they're wearing a ring that makes it really easy. And how do other people in the room feel about that? weighed with kind of the reality that having these recordings can be really helpful and useful in how we do things. And so I don't know. It's a weird kind of conundrum state.
So mine for the next year, real quick. The first one, I'm going to agree with your first one, which is that I think that I'm waiting to see, you asked whether we're productive, and I think at the larger level, at an industry level, is there real utility and real revenue at a scalable, constant way? Is this really a business or not? Right now it's hot and people are buying chips and they're building centers, but is this really going to take off or not? And I think it probably will, but we'll see whether the podcast sticks around as a result too. Number two is kind of coming back to the China theme. Just generally, will OpenAI stumble, or will it recover and be a real competitor? Right now, I think they're stumbling. And then number three, going back to our earlier conversation in the show, I've been thinking about this last week or so, and I was thinking that AI does have cooties, witness the stories we talked about, and I wondered whether people were going to come to a point where they would rebrand AI. They would stop calling it AI and they would start calling it other things. So it so happens this week I listened to a New Books Network podcast. It's a podcast of all kinds of academic books, really long, interesting, but pretty in-depth things. So it was a discussion with Thomas Haig, who's a University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee professor, who's a professor, historian of computers and technology. He wrote a book about the history of computers. He's writing one about the history of AI as a brand. And in the podcast, interestingly, he stole my thunder because he's smarter than I am and knows there. And he said he predicted that probably this year, coming up, a year or so, people will start calling it machine learning again or other things rather than AI if AI takes on enough of a negative connotation. So that'll be interesting to see as we go. Yep.
Absolutely. Although machine learning is a little bit more of a mouthful.
It is.
2 letters. But yes, no, I think you're absolutely right, though. I think there is a little bit of that cootie factor that might make that need to happen or make people feel like it needs to happen anyways. I'm sure we've missed a lot, but that's a couple of things that we're looking towards in the year 2026, outside of the fact that we're just going to continue doing this show and continue growing it. And I can't think of a person who I'd rather do this with on a weekly basis. Jeff, I really appreciate doing this show with you.
Yep.
I learn a ton. I learn from you, and I just appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
JeffJarvis.com is the place where you can go to find all of Jeff's works, his books primarily. Hot Type coming soon.
Available for pre-order right now.
Right on. Coming soon. Gutenberg parenthesis now, magazine now, and the web we weave right now. JeffJarvis.com. And then AIinside.show for all of our episodes, including our previous episode where we interviewed Ben Goertzel. Again, don't miss that if you did already. It's there for you, AIinside.show. And then finally, patreon.com/AIinside. You can go there. You can follow us and support us on a deeper level, and we appreciate if you do that. And we also have some amazing executive producers who support us on a deeper level each and every week. Dr. Do, Jeffrey Maricini, Radio Asheville 103.7, Dante St. James, Bono Derick, Jason Neiffer, Jason Brady, Anthony Downs, Mark Starcher, and Karsten Samashki. So thank you, everybody. And I'm covering up Jeff. I apologize about that. Thank you, everybody, for your support of this show. We could not do it without you. I know we say that a lot, but it's absolutely true.
Yep.
And then next week, just real quick before we end things, I'm going to be in Las Vegas for the Consumer Electronics Show. We didn't talk about that. So we'll talk about that off air. I'm guessing probably next week's episode is going to be a little different. Like I might, while I'm at the show, find a couple of people and do some interviews and everything, just because my schedule is going to be super packed. You're going to get an episode. Don't know what the format of that is going to be yet, but rest assured you'll get an episode. And that's all there is to it. So thank you, everybody.
Stay away from the germs there. Stay away from the CES germs, man.
Yeah, I'll have my my hand solution. Hopefully it'll do its job. Thank you, Jeff, for a wonderful year, and looking forward to next year with you.
Same back.
And thank you, everybody, for watching and listening. We'll see you next time on AI Inside. Happy New Year.